I've never told anyone what happened that summer. I don't really know why. Maybe because the minute I start to speak it out loud, I feel like I'm inviting it again, like it's still listening somehow. But I've kept it buried for years, so I'm finally ready to tell it. Before we get into the story, I'm Devin, and this is Porch Lore. Please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Enjoy the story. This is Porch Lore. And I'm your host, Devin. This is the tale of the Crawlspace. When I was 21, I rented a house in rural Tennessee for the summer. It was the kind of place you picture in a faded photograph. Wide front porch, paint peeling in soft curls, a yard full of tall grass and wild mint. It sat on a plot of land that used to be part of a larger farm, but the property had been split and sold in patches. The house was old. I mean, really old. Wooden floorboards, one bathroom, and a stove that hissed like it had secrets. I found it listed on a message board for college students doing internships, and I needed a cheap place to stay while working for a local historical society cataloging Civil War records. I should have known something was off when the landlord gave me the key in a Walgreens parking lot and told me he didn't go out there much anymore. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days, and when I asked if the area was safe, he said the neighbors mostly kept to themselves. I never saw any neighbors. The house was secluded, nestled between overgrown hedgerows and thick woods. The air was heavy with humidity, and the chirp of cicadas never stopped. It felt like the kind of place where time hiccuped. There were no streetlights, no mailboxes, just a gravel driveway and silence so thick it buzzed in my ears. The first few days were uneventful. Other than the sheer isolation, I was spending most of my time scanning old documents in the back office of the town's tiny museum, driving back at dusk. That's when the place started feeling off. Not haunted, not in the way you'd think, just off. It started with the crawlspace. There was a square vent cut into the floor of the hallway near the kitchen, one of those old-school access points to the house's foundation. The first time I noticed it, I assumed it was just an old vent. But when I leaned down to look, I saw a rusted latch on the wooden panel. It wasn't a vent. It was a door. A crawlspace hatch. I tried to open it just out of curiosity, but the thing wouldn't budge. I figured it had been sealed shut by time or moisture. But that night, as I laid in bed, I heard something move beneath the floorboards. It wasn't the usual creaks or groans of an old house settling. It was deliberate, slow, like a dragging motion, a rhythmic scrape, then a pause, then another scrape. I convinced myself it was raccoons or maybe a possum, but when I went outside the next morning and looked around the foundation, I didn't see any gaps or entry points. Everything was sealed tight. The next night, the scraping came back again, closer this time. The third night, I heard it while I was awake, sitting on the couch, sipping tea, trying to read. The scraping started from the far end of the house, near the back bedroom, and then it moved steadily forward, right beneath the floorboards. I held my breath, my eyes fixed on the crawlspace hatch across the room. It was dead silent for a few seconds, and then I heard it. Just once, the creak of the latch. I slept in my car that night. The next morning, I brought a hammer inside and tried prying open the hatch again. This time it lifted. Not easily, but enough that I could slide it back and reveal the square black hole beneath the floor. A wooden ladder led down into the dark, but the rungs were rotted, and I couldn't see more than a few feet down. I lowered my phone with the flashlight on, and that's when I saw it. There was a mattress down there. A twin-sized old-stained thing shoved against the dirt wall. Nearby, there was a rusted folding chair, an empty gallon jug, and what looked like a crumpled flannel shirt. It was a room. Someone had been living under the house. I slammed the hatch shut and nailed it down. I should have called the police. But the truth is, I didn't know what to tell them. There were no signs of forced entry, no threats, nothing technically criminal. Just a sense of growing dread that clung to everything. After that, I started noticing little things. My dish towel would be damp when I hadn't used it. My shampoo bottle would be in a slightly different spot. The hallway light bulb burned out 3 times in 1 week. Once, I found my toothbrush wet, and I hadn't brushed my teeth yet that day. I started locking my bedroom door at night, even though I knew that wouldn't stop someone determined. I even pushed a dresser in front of it too, just in case. But the scraping didn't stop. It got bolder. One night, I woke up to the sound of something breathing on the other side of the wall. Slow, steady, shallow breaths, like someone trying not to be heard. I pressed my ear to the drywall, barely breathing myself. I could hear it, faint but unmistakable. Someone was inside the wall. I drove back to town the next morning and asked my supervisor at the Historical Society if anyone had records on the old farm property. She looked surprised and said it had belonged to the Tullis family for generations, but was sold off in pieces in the 1990s. I asked if anyone had ever lived in the house recently, and she said no. It had sat vacant for at least 15 years before I moved in. She even joked that I was brave for staying out there alone. That word, vacant, echoed in my head all the way home. I stopped sleeping altogether after that. I started keeping a hammer next to my bed. I stopped using the shower and just bathed at the gym in town. I even bought one of those cheap door alarms from the hardware store and rigged it to the Crawlspace latch, just in case. It went off 2 nights later. The screech of that alarm jolted me out of a half sleep around 3 a.m., and I barely had time to grab the hammer before I heard the Crawlspace door slam shut. When I got there, the latch was broken off entirely, and there was a smell, musky, earthy, something like sweat and rotted leaves. I didn't go back to sleep. I sat in the middle of the living room with the hammer clutched in both hands, shaking. The next morning, I packed my bags and left. I didn't care about the rest of the lease. I didn't care about the deposit. I just wanted out of there. But here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. A week after I moved out, I got a call from the local sheriff's office. They'd been doing a welfare check on the house after reports of a break-in. When they entered, they found the place trashed. Dresser overturned, mattress slashed, dishes smashed. But the worst part was what they found in the crawl space. There was a trap door dug into the dirt, and beneath it, they found a tunnel. Hand-dug, just wide enough for someone to crawl through, and it led directly beneath the master bedroom. Inside the tunnel, they found food wrappers, empty pill bottles, and a collection of women's personal items. Lipsticks, socks, even a single earring that I'd thought I lost. The tunnel had been active. Whoever it was, whoever had been living under my house, they had left, but not before leaving a message scratched into the underside of the Crawlspace door. Just one word. Stay. I tried to forget about it. I really did. But here's the twist. The part that finally made me write all of this down. Now it's been almost a decade since this happened to me. And 2 weeks ago, I moved into a new apartment in a different state. Top floor, secure, big building, new locks. Everything felt fine. Until I came home from work one day and noticed the vent above the bathroom door was slightly ajar. I grabbed a stool and looked inside. There was something shiny wedged in the corner, so I pulled it out. It was a single red earring. The matching one. The one I never lost. But how? Now I hear scraping again. Only this time, it's coming from above. I'm Devin, and thanks for joining me, Porch Pals. For more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. And remember, there's always room for one more on the porch.